In this video I'm gonna share with you a clear 5-step system so that you can finally play a game of chess you can be proud of. If you're anywhere under 2000 ELO, this video is gonna drastically improve your chess understanding and decision making process, but only if you're gonna make it till the end. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. And today we play against Nora. Nora is a 2200 rated elo bot on chess.com, and I'm gonna play as white. I'm gonna start my game over here with the move d4 and show you exactly step by step what you need to know and of course how to execute it to play a great game of chess. Now, the first step in every chess game that you need to religiously follow to be able to play a great game and to crush your opponent is to prepare for the battle. How do you do that? You have to focus on three things to achieve this first step. This is focus on the center, because center is the most important part of the board. If you control the center, it's going to be so much simpler for you to control the game in the middle game, as well as have more opportunities to attack your opponent and create threats, which is going to be crucial in the next steps. The second one is to bring all of your pieces into the battlefield. So you need to develop all of your pieces as fast as possible and as active as possible. Absolutely, this is the most important thing you have to focus on in the opening, because once again, it's gonna be the first step to allow you make sure that all of the following steps would be possible, and you can build this foundation of playing a great game of chess. And finally, the third step is to bring your king into the safety, because before you go all in into the attack and you want to destroy your opponent, you must make sure that your king, like your child, is in safety, so that you can focus on what's really important for the battle. Okay, my opponent plays e5 here immediately, which is a very aggressive move. Now, I have just read here that she learned from Magnus Carlsen's games, so she wants to just crush me. I don't care. And that's, by the way, what so many people told me in the comments, that when they play, somehow people don't play normally against them, and they cannot follow these normal opening principles because of their opponent's weird play. Well, e5 is a very good example for that. What I want you to understand, that you don't need to necessarily react weirdly to their weird play. In most of the cases, we just want to focus on what is important for us while making sure we acknowledge our opponent's threats. So of course we need to understand, okay, this pawn is hanging here on d4. I mean, I have one defender as a queen, but I don't want to take with the queen, because then I'm gonna lose a lot of time. So this is not such a great turn of event. If I want to play my normal plan with knight to f3, then he has the move e4. So it's so important to think what the opponent can do. And this is, by the way, the second step in our system. It starts with the move 1, as you can see here. You must always think about your opponent's idea. You never play chess alone, and I want you to do it the right way from the very beginning, because so many low-rated players lose because they are not focusing enough on what their opponent wants to do. They are just all in their thoughts, in their ideas, and that's not enough. Please remember about this. So our opponent plays e5, creates a threat here. What is the most active way we can deal with it? Well, we can just grab this pawn, which is unprotected, and now our opponent has to somehow prove that that sacrifice was not for nothing. Okay, she plays queen to h4, which is more than weird, and that fits into the comment I have recently got about this weird play of low-rated opponents. Although it's like 2200, I didn't expect such a play. But okay, so many players are attacking early with the queen, and what do we do with that? Well, we try to combine two things. We try to deal with our opponent's threats, although in this case I don't even see a threat, but doesn't matter. And second, we tend to make a useful move for ourselves. So that should be a multi-purpose move, like this move knight f3. At the same time, it develops a new piece, very good, like that's exactly what we need to do. Remember, we need to bring all of our forces into the battlefield. And at the same time, we attack this queen, so we create a threat. We deal with, I don't know, maybe bishop c5 and queen takes f2, checkmate idea, or whatever our opponent wanted to do. Now he has, or she has in this case, lose yet another tempo, and we are continuing our stuff. So that is what you are aiming for. She plays queen to e4, which is another very bad move. Now I can activate another knight once again with the tempo. Yes, maybe that's not that straightforward, because our opponent can play bishop b4, and that would at least create a problem for us in terms of this pin here, but actually just bishop d2. So when we acknowledge our opponent's idea, and then we think of a way to make a useful move for ourselves, as well as deal with the opponent's threat, then we are pretty much always good to go. Okay, queen to c4. So right now we are still inside of those two first steps of playing a great game, namely like bringing all of our pieces and preparing for the battle and focusing on our opponent's idea. Queen to c4, another weird move, really not attacking. That's also very important to understand. Sometimes it feels like your opponent makes a dangerous move, like the queen is going forward and oh my god, it controls so many squares, but you actually have to think whether it creates any threats. Threat means that it's about to take something or give you a dangerous check or make something very unpleasant for you. But if you think carefully about it, the queen doesn't create any threats for us whatsoever. The knight is protected, those pawns are protected. What the queen wants here, there is no threat. So you don't need to like look at your opponent's move and think, oh my god, it's so dangerous, I have to do something about it. Not necessarily. You have to acknowledge for sure what he is doing and understand whether there is a threat. And if there is a dangerous threat, then and only then you need to do something about it. Here, we just need to focus on our stuff as there are no threats. But I can combine that. I can play the move e4. I control the center. Remember, that was one of the 3 ways we needed to do to be prepared for a battle, control the center. e4 helps drastically with that. And at the same time, we are about to develop a new piece. And so far, our opponent makes only moves with the queen. He played e5 on move 1, and afterwards all of the moves were with the queen, and this is the opposite of the strategy you should follow. Your golden principle should be one piece, one move, and that's exactly what we have done so far, and I intend to continue in the same manner. So I'm gonna play bishop e3 here, making yet another move with a tempo. So tempo moves are great because you're developing a new piece, and at the same time you create another threat, so your opponent has to waste yet another move. This is perfect. Okay, finally our opponent creates a threat. So whenever our opponent makes a move, we forget about all of our ideas. Maybe that was to develop the bishop or something. For a second, we forget about everything and think, what is the idea behind that move? The idea is clear. It attacks the pawn. How do we understand the idea? Well, we look at the move and think, what kind of dangerous stuff it can create for us? Does it have any intentions to give a check? Well, not really. It pins the knight, but no checks. Can it capture something? Yes, there is a b2 pawn which is unprotected and can be captured. So that might be a little bit annoying, right? Because the pawn, we lose a pawn, then the knight would be hanging, then the bishop might come to b4, creating yet another problem. So not necessarily we want to lose that pawn, or we want to be prepared for that. For example, one way to be prepared is to play queen to d2. That is consistent with bringing all of our pieces into the game, and that would also deal with one of our opponent's ideas, namely attacking this knight on c3, because after queen takes b2, the knight would be protected. Now, after queen takes b2, we have the move rook to b1. We are attacking the queen, and we are winning so much time that it's definitely worth the pawn, because our opponent continues just losing all of the tempi instead of making something useful. Now, there is another idea which I like here, the move a3. That is, well, already trying to punish our opponent, because she made way too many. It's like move number 6. 5 out of those moves have been with the queen. She has not developed any pieces, and if your opponent does something like that, well, that should ring a bell. It's time to punish it. It's just too much. So yeah, queen d2 is a nice move, but a3 seems to be even stronger, because now after queen takes b2, I'm playing knight to b5, I'm threatening to play knight takes c7 and just win the rook there for free, but at the same time I'm threatening this move rook to b1, and the queen doesn't seem to have any moves to go. Apart from that, I'm also threatening bishop to d4, and the queen also has no moves to go. So yeah, that seems to be winning. But you never make a move such as a3 without thinking what your opponent can do first. So in general, this is like the best advice I have for you. Never make a move unless you have thought about your opponent's answer. If you're gonna just do this one thing, you're gonna become so much stronger in chess. Having said that, let me play the move a3. So the third step that you have to follow in order to play a great game of chess is to have a plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to think what is your general idea, general strategy for the game. In my case here, since my opponent is playing so weirdly and wasting so much time with just one piece, which actually shouldn't be developed that early overall in the opening, my plan is to use it to punish him and to activate as many pieces as possible and take advantage of the fact that this queen is so weirdly placed and catch the queen, at the same time creating more threats for my opponent. Normally, your opponent doesn't play that weirdly, and you should make more normal moves, and your idea should be to play on the side of the board where you are stronger. This is a thing that so many players misunderstand. They try to think like, okay, my opponent is stronger here, so I have, or maybe here, so I have to play there to compensate that. No, you actually need to take advantage of the fact that you are stronger on one side of the board and play there, because logically you are stronger there. And then, once you understand what's your plan, for example, it might be attack the king because it's stuck in the center, and well, we have to take advantage of that. We need to create the threats for the king. Then all of your moves, you should center around that idea. So you think, okay, how can I attack that king? How can I create these threats? What could be the best way to do that? So that would be step number 4, actively execute your plan. In order to understand how you do that, the 5th step would help you so much, namely, always starting with the most active opportunities, which are checks, captures, and threats. Checks, captures, and threats. Please focus on these things, but not only for yourself, also for your opponent, and you're gonna play chess so much stronger. Just these 3 things, but if you religiously focus on it. Because many people say, okay, checks, captures, threats, I have heard it like 100 times, it's so simple, it doesn't help me. No, the problem is that you don't use the method properly, because you might be saying, there are 2 ways. Either you are just not thinking in terms of checks, captures, and threats at all, or you're thinking bishop g5, it's a check, let me just make it. No, the method is not to do that. The method is to start evaluating and considering the options in this order. Because chances are, if you're gonna miss a very good opportunity, and we don't want to do that, but if you're gonna miss it, then it's going to be either a check or a capture or a threat. So by starting looking at your opportunities in this order, you are just decreasing the chances of missing such great opportunities by a huge margin. And of course, you need to find those to be able to play a great game of chess. This video is brought to you by Chessnut. Chessnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chessnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chessnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chessnut products. The bishop g5 is a check here, but does it actually threaten anything? Is it actually helpful for me? First of all, this bishop has already moved, and so bishop g5 would be the second move with the same piece. So far I have made it once with this knight on b5 because I created a very huge threat, and also the knight was hanging. So you're allowed to do that in the opening, make more than one move with the same piece, only for a good reason. The reason must really be good. Like bishop g5, I don't consider it to be a good enough reason because, well, my opponent can just defend and then it's not like I'm achieving much. I rather help my opponent bring new pieces into the game. So I acknowledge that bishop g5, that's not so bad, not so good either. So maybe I have a better opportunity. Then I come to captures. What can I take here? Well, I can take from them, for example, this pawn on a7 because it has only one defender and I have here two attackers. But is it really the best opportunity I have here? It seems like I'm winning the pawn and then I might exchange my knight for a bishop. But if I consider my position to be so promising, then it doesn't seem to be the best case. And finally, the third thing is to create threats. How do you go about it, creating threats for your opponent? Well, you once again start with the most important thing, which is the king. The king is always the most important. If you give a checkmate, then everything else doesn't matter. So you're looking for a way to create a checkmating threat. In this position, it's not really possible, at least yet. So, okay, I move on. The second most important piece in the game is the queen. And for the queen, I have an opportunity to create so many threats over here. I can play rook to b1, I can play bishop d4, and to understand which one is better, I have to calculate the variations. This is a more difficult part, but also a very, very important one. So I encourage you to never make a move unless you think what your opponent can do. And if I play rook to b1, I attack the queen, so I naturally should think what the queen is going to do, because it's a huge threat. My opponent cannot just ignore it. So does he have any squares to go? Well, the only one is a2. And from there, he would be able to go back and save his queen. What about the other? So the best thing you can do is consider at least two options before you make your move. I understand not always you have an opportunity to do that because your time might be limited, but if you have a little bit, then before you make your final choice, just consider at least two opportunities that you think are promising. Because I can attack this queen in multiple ways. I also have the move bishop to d4, and now I do the same. I think whether the queen has any moves to go, and actually the answer is no, the queen has absolutely zero squares. Now, it doesn't mean that necessarily this move is working, because maybe my opponent can create a counter threat. And once again, this is why it's so important to think about all of your opponent's possible responses, and you do it in the same fashion as you do for yourself. Checks, captures, and threats. So I see here the check bishop to b4, which might help black to save the queen. And then, well, I at least win the bishop. I can take here, queen takes, then I can easily deal with the check, for example, c3, and then I at least win the bishop. That's a great variation. So I don't need to reject the move bishop d4 because of that. But I have to calculate that. If you are not doing that, then chances are you're going to miss some really cool opportunities for your opponent. And if he is not silly, he's going to use it, and you are going to regret spoiling such a nice position. Okay, he does play bishop b4. Now, of course, the most obvious choice is to take the bishop with the pawn. But maybe it's not the best one, because I want to win here the queen. And if I actually can deal with the check somehow, then I'm going to just win the queen for free. That would be even better. So I'm thinking about the move knight to d2 here. Yes, it's a move back, but if we win a queen, then it's worth it. So knight to d2. Now the queen still has no moves, and the bishop on d4 is still protected. It's always very important to understand what has changed in the position. Knight d2, the knight is no longer protecting this guy, but we have a second one. Now, he can take it, of course. That would be a check, the most active opportunity. And if I take with the queen, the most obvious move, then the rook is still protected by the bishop, and the black's queen still doesn't have any moves. Apart from bishop to d2, there is bishop c3, but I just take with the bishop and I still win the queen. So yes, that thing is winning the queen. Although if you are thinking, okay, let me just take the bishop and I'm gonna still have a huge advantage, then it would be good enough. But if you have a better opportunity and you can stop for a second, slow down and think what could really be the best, then why on earth wouldn't you do that? Yes, it worked out, because now we are just winning the entire queen. To be honest, I have never thought it's going to be so simple to win against this 2200 rated opponent. Let me know in the comments what is your impression, how strong or weak your opponents are playing on such a level. Okay, now my opponent has created 2 threats. Remember to always look for your opponent's ideas. Not like, okay, I have an extra queen, I can play whatever. It's never too late to spoil a game. And here, for example, if I just look at this rook and say, okay, let me just bring it to b1, then I ignore the fact that the knight is hanging, and I'm gonna regret it later on. But I like the move knight to b5, because I'm only losing in exchange, I'm winning the only piece, or I'm exchanging the only active piece my opponent has, and yeah, I pretty much enjoy it. Queen a1, also the queen is very active along the diagonal, and why you win the material? Because you want to use it. You don't want just to be happy about the fact that you have an extra queen. Your pieces should work. That is why you do that. So here I see, remember, always starting with the most active opportunity, checks, captures, and threats. I don't have any checks. I have a few captures, but they are just losing the knight. But I do have this move e6, which is opening up my queen, basically developing the queen, bringing it into the attack, and it creates a huge devastating threat of queen takes g7. Yeah, that is why my opponent plays that. Okay, now my pawns were doubled, so I can take those. I can open up the king, which would be beneficial for me. And afterwards, hope my opponent will take it. Yes, I will just bring all of my pieces into the game to stay consistent with our plan. It doesn't matter, even in some cases it might be already the end game, but you still need to focus on bringing all of your pieces into the battlefield. So it doesn't matter if somehow the game is going towards the end, still focus on first developing all of your pieces, and then if they're already developed but not on the ideal squares, like for example this knight on d2, it definitely can be improved, then focus on improving it and finding the best possible. For example, I want to play this move knight to b3, because from here then I can go to c5, attack the bishop, and in general be very, very active. As well as open up this d file for the rook. The rooks always love the open files, so that is a cool thing. Now my opponent plays a6, I have to forget about all of my plans and think about my opponent's idea. I don't want to lose my knight, so let me just bring it to d4, because another very good rule of thumb, if you have a lot of extra material, you want to exchange the pieces. Because if you have, let's say, 10 pieces and your opponent has 9, then you have 10% more pieces than your opponent. But if you exchange a bunch of stuff and then you have 2 pieces against 1, then you have twice as many pieces and the advantage is huge. Okay, now bringing the queen into the center is the most active thing I can do, because in the center queen is controlling so many squares. Now the reason why you don't develop the queen too early in the opening, like you have seen in this game, because it can easily be attacked. But moving on into the game, if there is no easy way for your opponent to chase your queen and so that you don't lose a lot of time, then it can actually be very, very active in the center. For example, this rook is hanging there, the bishop cannot move there, and I have created a threat of playing bishop to e6. Yeah, actually I can still do that, because my opponent is not fast enough with his development. Even though he has lost so many pieces already, he still cannot fully finish his development. Now I play bishop d7. I acknowledge the fact that my opponent attacked my queen, but if I have a check, then it's a more dangerous threat. Okay, now I can just stay here, because once again I exchange a lot of pieces and the resulting position would be so much winning for me. So I go for it, takes d4, I have 2 extra pieces, and my opponent still has a huge problem with the king. And notice he never was able to finish the development because this rook is still not participating at all. Okay, at least he avoids the checkmate, but I can just grab the rook. Okay, let me do it fast for you. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get a $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. have defeated Nora. I hope you enjoyed this game. This was useful for you. Try to use this system in your games, but try to use it wisely, not just blindly follow the ideas, but apply it to your games, to your opponents. Always think about their ideas and focus on the most relevant stuff. Now, if that was too advanced for you, in this video I play against slightly lower rated opponents and explain all of my ideas in the process so that you can play as strong as you never did before.